Long, long ago, before the heavens were lifted up and the earth settled, the world was in deep chaos. There was no day or night, and all that was known was shrouded in a mixture of darkness and confusion. Ancient Chinese texts describe this state as a cosmic egg, where yin and yang were trapped, spinning and colliding relentlessly. It was from this primordial mix that two deities were born that would forever change the destiny of the universe: Fuxi and Nüwa. Unlike ordinary humans, Fuxi and Nüwa had extraordinary appearance. From the waist up, their bodies were human, with noble and serene features. However, their lower torsos were shaped like snakes, a symbol of their connection to nature and their ability to move between heaven and earth. In them, the force of creation and the power of transformation were gathered. From the moment of their appearance, Fuxi and Nüwa knew that the chaos around them needed to be transformed into order. But the world was immense, and his mission, although clear, seemed endless. Walking together, they explored desolate landscapes where rivers flowed aimlessly, mountains were shapeless, and creatures lived without rules or purpose. Everything was mired in a state of anarchy that did not allow life to flourish. One day, while traveling through a vast valley, Fuxi and Nüwa encountered the first humans. They were vulnerable beings, trapped in a hostile environment. They struggled to find food, shelter, and safety. Humans didn't know how to protect themselves from wild animals, how to light a fire for warmth, or how to work together to survive. His days were short and full of fear. Observing this fragility, Nüwa felt deep compassion. It was then that he decided that humans would be the center of his mission. Gently, Nüwa approached the bank of a river, where she found fresh, malleable mud. With infinite patience, he began to mold small figures with his own hands. Each figure was different, reflecting the diversity of future humans. Once the figures were complete, Nüwa breathed life into them with a touch of her divine energy, and thus the first men and women were born. The humans, although now alive, were still fragile. Fuxi, upon seeing this, took it upon himself to teach them the skills necessary to survive. Inspired by the animals he had observed on his journey, he showed them how to hunt with simple tools, how to build shelters to protect them from the elements, and how to light a fire to cook and stay warm during the cold nights. But the challenges were constant. Humans faced attacks from wild animals, unpredictable storms, and lack of food. Fuxi and Nüwa worked tirelessly to help them. Fuxi, an astute observer, noticed that fish in rivers swam in schools for protection. Inspired by this image, he created rudimentary nets made of plant fibers, teaching humans to catch fish in large quantities, thus ensuring a constant source of food. Meanwhile, Nüwa was dedicated to something equally important. He observed the stars in the night sky, looking for patterns that could guide humans in their daily activities. Over time, he created a primitive calendar that helped humans understand the seasons, teaching them when to plant, when to harvest, and how to adapt to natural changes. However, his task was not without difficulties. Despite Fuxi and Nüwa's efforts, humans often made mistakes, facing situations that the gods could not foresee. There were times when hunger or desperation drove people to fight among themselves, threatening to undo all the progress they had made. In these situations, Fuxi and Nüwa demonstrated great patience and compassion, helping humans learn from their mistakes and work together as a community. As the days passed, the chaos that dominated the world began to subside. Humans began to prosper under the guidance of Fuxi and Nüwa, learning not only to survive, but also to create. They began to build villages, share knowledge, and form connections that allowed them to face challenges as a united group. Although there was still much to do, the world was no longer the same desolate place that Fuxi and Nüwa had found at the beginning. However, for the two gods, this was only the first stage of their mission. They knew there were still chaotic forces lurking in the shadows, ready to undo all they had accomplished. But they also knew that humanity had potential, and that in time, humans could find their own balance in the universe. Over time, Humans began to adapt to their environment thanks to the teachings of Fuxi and Nüwa. However, learning was not always easy. The first humans were like children, full of curiosity, but also clumsy and prone to making mistakes. Fuxi, patient and wise, understood that it was not enough to teach them to survive. They had to learn to live with nature and among themselves. One of the first lessons Fuxi taught was the art of hunting. Watching the wolves, he noticed how they worked as a team to corner their prey. Inspired by this behavior, he taught humans to collaborate during hunting, designing simple strategies to catch animals. He also showed them how to make spears from sharp stones and sturdy sticks, tools that revolutionized their ability to gather food. However, Nüwa, with her sensitivity to balance, reminded humans not to hunt more than they needed. Every creature has a purpose in this world, he said. If we take too much, we will break the harmony and suffer the consequences. These words resonated deeply, and humans began to understand that their relationship with nature should be one of mutual respect. Meanwhile, Fuxi continued to explore new ways to improve the lives of humans. During one of his walks, he discovered a stream where fish swam in large groups. Fascinated by its organization, he designed the first fishing nets using braided plant fibers. He taught humans to place nets in the water and wait patiently. The first time they lifted a net full of fish, shouts of joy echoed throughout the valley. But it wasn't all work. Nüwa, with her creative touch, introduced humans to music and art. Using shells, bones, and hollow branches, humans began to create rhythmic sounds, allowing them to express emotions and tell stories. The first drawings on rocks also appeared under the guidance of Nüwa, who taught them to capture their experiences and learnings in simple forms, ensuring that future generations would inherit this knowledge. Fuxi and Nüwa's work also included establishing social structures. Fuxi, noting how some humans were stronger while others were more skilled at manual tasks, proposed a division of roles based on each individual's capabilities. The strongest were in charge of protecting the community and hunting, while the most creative worked on building tools and shelters. This organization brought a sense of unity and purpose, helping humans work as a collective. In parallel, Nüwa dedicated his time to solving a problem that had begun to arise: conflicts between humans themselves. With the increasing population and increasing need for resources, disputes were inevitable. To solve this, Nüwa taught the value of empathy and communication. He often mediated between warring parties, reminding them that the true enemy was not among them, but in the chaos that still threatened the world. One day, an unexpected challenge tested the teachings of the gods. A terrible storm broke out, destroying much of the shelters and submerging the fields in water. The humans, scared and disorganized, did not know how to face this crisis. But Fuxi and Nüwa quickly intervened. Fuxi led the reconstruction, teaching humans to reinforce their structures with stronger materials, such as wood and stone. For its part, Nüwa guided families to work together, sharing resources and caring for the most vulnerable. After the storm, something changed in the community. Humans had not only overcome great difficulty, but had also learned the value of cooperation and resilience. Fuxi and Nüwa knew that this was a sign of progress, an indication that humanity was beginning to find its way. In addition to practical lessons, Fuxi began teaching something more abstract but just as important: symbols. Using simple lines and basic shapes, he created the first characters to represent ideas such as water, fire, and animals. These marks on stone or wood were not only tools of communication, but also a reflection of the world around them. Over time, this system would become the basis of writing, a gift that would allow humans to transmit knowledge beyond spoken words. On the other hand, Nüwa continued working on the connection between humans and the universe. One night, while looking at the stars, he had a revelation. The bright spots in the sky were not scattered randomly. They followed patterns. He shared this observation with humans, teaching them to read the constellations to orient themselves and plan their activities. This celestial knowledge allowed them not only to organize their lives, but also to find solace in the vastness of the cosmos. Thus, under the guidance of Fuxi and Nüwa, humans began to transform. They were no longer the vulnerable creatures they had been at the beginning, but a growing society, capable of facing challenges and creating beauty in the midst of adversity. However, the gods knew that their work was not finished. There were still mysteries to discover and dangers to face. The balance they were building was fragile, and it would take just one mistake for chaos to return. The world seemed to be finding its shape, guided by the wise hands of Fuxi and Nüwa. However, the primordial chaos, that destructive force that existed before his arrival, had not yet been completely eradicated. It remained dormant, waiting for its moment to return. One morning, as Nüwa walked through a fertile valley where humans had begun farming, she sensed a change in the air, an imbalance. Something dark was approaching, and he knew that this time it would be no small challenge. Thus, Earth began to shake, and monstrous, deformed, and hostile creatures emerged from the cracks. These creatures were the remnants of chaos, fragments of ancient disharmony that had hidden in the depths. Their presence threatened to destroy everything humans had built. Fields were devastated, shelters reduced to rubble, and fear began to spread like an uncontrollable fire. Fuxi and Nüwa rushed to intervene. Fuxi, with his strategic nature, led the humans to defend themselves against the creatures. He showed them how to use fire, a tool that until then had been primarily for cooking and warmth, as a weapon to scare away beasts. He also organized them into groups, assigning specific tasks. Some protected the most vulnerable, while others built barriers and traps to contain the invaders. Nüwa, for its part, focused on restoring natural balance. He knew that these creatures were nothing more than a manifestation of a deeper problem. The balance between yin and yang had been disturbed. He climbed a sacred mountain to meditate and look for a solution. While there, he had a vision: to restore harmony. He needed to repair damage that lay beyond the physical world. The vision took her to a remote place where she found a celestial river that connected heaven and earth. This river, which represented the energy flow of the universe, had been contaminated by chaos fragments. Using her divine strength, Nüwa collected vibrantly colored stones from the riverbed and began work on creating a large pillar to support the sky and stabilize the earth. Each stone he placed shone with an intense light, and little by little, the river regained its purity. While Nüwa dealt with this crucial work, Fuxi faced a more immediate challenge. One of the creatures of chaos, a gigantic snake, had destroyed the fishing nets and was poisoning the water with its venom. This not only threatened humans, but also the surrounding animals and plants. Without hesitation, Fuxi came up with a plan. With the help of the most skilled hunters, he made a giant trap using tree trunks and stones. The battle against the snake was fierce. Humans, who had previously feared even small animals, now bravely faced a colossal beast. Under Fuxi's guidance, they managed to capture the snake and seal it in a deep cave, far from the settlements. This act marked a before and after in the history of humanity. For the first time, humans had not only survived, but had shown that they could defend themselves and protect their world. When Nüwa returned after completing her task, she found the humans exhausted but united. They had overcome a great test, and a new spark was reflected in their eyes, that of hope and resilience. Nüwa, excited, spoke to them with words that would remain etched in their memory. Today you have shown that chaos does not define your destiny. The order we have created is not only our gift to you, but your responsibility. Take care of this world as you took care of it, from each other today. However, the fight against chaos left scars. The humans had lost some of their shelters and crops, and many were injured. But instead of giving up, they began to rebuild with renewed determination. Following the teachings of Fuxi and Nüwa, they worked together to restore what was lost. Over time, the fields bloomed again, and the villages grew stronger. During this period of reconstruction, Fuxi had another brilliant idea. He watched as the chaos creatures, although dangerous, followed a certain pattern in their movements. This inspired him to create a system that would allow humans to record and forecast the world's natural cycles. Thus was born the concept of trigrams, a set of symbols that represented the forces of nature and their interactions. These trigrams, which would later form the basis of the I Ching, not only helped humans understand their environment, but also find balance in their own lives. On the other hand, Nüwa continued to strengthen emotional bonds between humans. He introduced the idea of community rituals, moments where people could come together to celebrate, reflect, and give thanks. These ceremonies not only gave them a sense of purpose, but also served as a reminder that they were not alone in their struggles. One of the most important rituals was the Harvest Festival, where everyone shared what they had gathered, symbolizing the abundance that could be achieved through cooperation. But despite these advances, Fuxi and Nüwa knew that the chaos would never completely disappear. There would always be challenges, both external and internal. Humans would have to face not only the forces of nature, but also their own flaws: greed, envy, and fear. The gods understood that their task was not to eliminate chaos, but to teach humans how to manage it and find balance in the midst of it. Thus, as the world transformed, Fuxi and Nüwa continued to watch and guide from the shadows, ensuring that their creation would never forget the lessons they had learned. As the humans grew stronger and their communities grew, Fuxi and Nüwa began to notice subtle changes. The first signs of leadership and organization emerged among them, while others demonstrated special abilities, such as making more advanced tools or creating melodies that brought people together. What was once a scattered group of individuals was now beginning to resemble a developing civilization. With this progress came new challenges. Fuxi and Nüwa realized that although they had guided humans in hunting, fishing, and building, humanity's true success would depend on something deeper: their ability to preserve the harmony and wisdom they had learned. Thus, they began to transmit lessons that not only addressed practical needs, but also spiritual ones. One night, Fuxi gathered the village leaders around a bonfire. He drew the first trigrams on the ground, representing heaven, earth, water, and fire. He explained to them how these forces interacted to maintain the balance of the world. Heaven and earth, he said, are opposites, but they need each other. So it is with everything that exists. If one dominates the other, the imbalance will bring chaos. The leaders listened carefully, and the trigrams soon became a common language among them, a symbol of wisdom and unity. But Fuxi didn't stop there. He taught humans to record the cycles of the seasons, marking the beginning of the calendar. This knowledge allowed them to better plan planting and harvesting, ensuring they had enough to feed their communities throughout the year. Nüwa, meanwhile, focused on strengthening emotional bonds between people. He understood that unity was the key to overcoming any adversity. Thus, he taught them to honor their ancestors, recognizing that their achievements were possible thanks to those who came before. He introduced rituals where families gathered to tell stories about their elders, celebrating their lives and learnings. This act not only strengthened family relationships, but also connected humans to their past, giving them a sense of identity and purpose. However, not everything was easy. Humanity was at a critical point in its development, and some were beginning to stray from its teachings. A small part of humans, dazzled by the power they had obtained, began to use it to dominate others. This deeply worried Nüwa, who saw how unbridled ambition could become a threat to the balance he had worked so hard to establish. To address this, Nüwa convened a special council. Under the moonlight, he spoke to all the gathered humans. Power is not an end in itself. Its purpose is to serve the common good. When it is used to oppress or destroy, it becomes a seed of chaos. His words resonated, and many of those who had strayed reconsidered their actions. Still, some remained stubborn, a sign that the fight for balance would be an ongoing task. During this time, Fuxi and Nüwa also began to prepare humanity for a future without their direct guidance. They knew they couldn't stay with them forever. but they wanted to make sure their teachings lived on. Thus, they decided to create monuments and symbols that encapsulated their wisdom. In a valley surrounded by mountains, Fuxi traced a huge design in the earth using stones, representing the trigrams and forces of nature. This place became a sacred site, where humans came to reflect and learn. Nüwa, for his part, created a series of statues that represented the stages of the life cycle: birth, growth, maturity, and death. These statues were not only works of art, but also pedagogical tools that helped humans understand that everything in the universe was connected. One day, while Fuxi and Nüwa were contemplating the progress of humanity from the top of a mountain, they decided to test their students one last time. They disguised themselves as traveling elders and visited the villages to observe up close how the people lived and whether they had really learned their lessons. In a village, they found a group of humans working together to build a bridge over a river. When the elderly travelers asked them why they did it, one young man replied, "We want to connect our villages so that we can share resources and help each other in difficult times." Fuxi and Nüwa exchanged a look of pride. His teachings had borne fruit. In another village, however, they saw a conflict between two families over control of a fertile field. Fuxi intervened as a mediator, reminding them of Nüwa's words about cooperation and mutual respect. Little by little, the families resolved their differences, and the gods once again felt that their presence was still needed. Time passed, and although humans continued to face difficulties, they also demonstrated an amazing ability to adapt and learn. Fuxi and Nüwa, satisfied with what they had achieved, began to consider their departure. But they knew that the exact moment had to be carefully chosen. The legacy they would leave would depend on how prepared humans were to continue on their own. Meanwhile, humans continued to develop, creating new tools and ways of life. Some began to explore beyond their territories, taking with them the teachings of Fuxi and Nüwa. Thus, the ideas of unity, balance, and respect for nature expanded, reaching distant corners of the world. The world that Fuxi and Nüwa began to take shape. Although they knew that perfection would never be attainable, they understood that humanity had taken important steps toward a promising future. However, the question remained, would they be ready to walk on their own when they left? The day arrived. Fuxi and Nüwa felt in their hearts that humanity was ready to walk without their direct guidance. For countless years, they had shaped not only the world, but also its inhabitants, imparting wisdom, tools, and, above all, the ability to face chaos with resilience. But his time among mortals must come to an end. Before leaving, Fuxi and Nüwa decided to leave one last gift for the humans, one that symbolized the eternal connection between the gods and their creation. In a serene valley, surrounded by mountains, that seemed to touch the sky, the two gods worked together to create something that transcended time. Fuxi drew a large circle on the earth, representing unity and the eternal cycle of life, while Nüwa molded a figure out of clay that embodied both strength and compassion. The figure was a dragon, a creature that symbolized the balance between power and wisdom. This celestial dragon would be a constant reminder that harmony was only achieved when opposing forces worked together. This dragon is not just a symbol, Nüwa explained to the gathered humans. It is a protector. Whenever chaos threatens to return, this dragon will awaken to help them find their way back to balance. The humans, moved, promised to take care of the dragon and the values it represented. Some even offered songs and dances in honor of Fuxi and Nüwa, giving thanks for all they had done. However, the gods knew that words were not enough. What really mattered was that humans' actions reflected the lessons learned. That night, under a star-filled sky, Fuxi and Nüwa met with the village leaders for the last time. They talked to them about the importance of humility, respect for nature, and caring for each other. Fuxi took a moment to show them one last lesson on trigrams, pointing out how even the smallest change in one of the symbols could alter the entire pattern. That's life, he said. A small act can have enormous consequences. You have the power to decide whether those consequences will bring chaos or harmony. For her part, Nüwa shared one last story. a fable about a river that divided into many streams, losing its initial strength. But when the streams joined together again, they became a powerful current capable of overcoming any obstacle. "Unity is your greatest strength," he told them. "Never forget it." When the first light of dawn illuminated the sky, Fuxi and Nüwa knew it was time. They climbed together to the top of a sacred mountain, where they could see the entire world they had helped create. The humans followed them as far as they could, watching with tears in their eyes as their protectors disappeared over the horizon. However, Fuxi and Nüwa did not leave this world completely. They became part of him, in the water that flows, in the wind that caresses the fields, in the fire that warms the homes, and in the earth that supports the steps of humans. Although their physical forms disappeared, their presence was felt in every corner of the world, a constant reminder that they would never be truly alone. The humans, inspired by the departure of Fuxi and Nüwa, began to build a society that honored their legacy. They used the trigrams to guide their decisions, held rituals honoring the cycles of nature, and strove to maintain balance in their lives. Although they faced challenges, the teachings of the gods gave them the strength to overcome any obstacle. Over time, the story of Fuxi and Nüwa became legend. The elders narrated it to the young people around the bonfires, always reminding them that they were the heirs of divine wisdom. Statues and monuments built by the gods became sacred places, visited by generations seeking guidance and solace. And the celestial dragon they left behind remained a symbol of hope. According to tradition, the dragon alone would wake up in the darkest moments when humanity was on the brink of collapse. Until then, his silent presence was enough to remind them that they had the power to face any adversity. The legacy of Fuxi and Nüwa was not only their knowledge, but also the love and faith they placed in humanity. They had shown that, although humans were imperfect, they had the potential to achieve great things when they worked together. In every corner of the world, the echoes of its story resonated, inspiring people to seek harmony not only with nature, but also with each other. The teachings of Fuxi and Nüwa transcended time, becoming the foundation of a culture that valued balance, wisdom, and togetherness. And so, although the gods were gone, their spirit remained, guiding humanity toward a future full of possibilities. With this final chapter, the story of Fuxi and Nüwa closes, but the journey into Chinese myths and legends continues. In our next video, we will explore the fascinating The 10 Sons and Hou Yi. Archer Hou Yi shot down 9 of the 10 sons to save the world. A place wrapped in mystery and wonder. What secrets await us? Don't forget to subscribe, leave your comments, and join us on this adventure to find out.